2020's Another Round, directed by Thomas Winterberg, starring Mads Mikkelsen, Thomas Bo Larsen, Magnus Millang. People have seen before, but I hadn't really put names together. So that might be true for a lot of people listening as well. But everybody, I would think, knows Mads Mikkelsen in some capacity. But yeah, the log line of the synopsis of the movie is four high school teachers consume alcohol on a daily basis to see how it affects their social and professional lives, which sounds really fun. And believe me, there's a thematic relevance to that for this year as well, because I really got into cocktail making. But this movie is I think probably my favorite movies from the 2020 Oscar season. One of the best movies I watched that was nominated, and a movie that I'm going to get back to again and again. But like we've been talking to the entire podcast, I think there's something about right movie at the right time. There's something about, me myself, like I'm going to be 40 very soon, which is, for those who haven't watched the movie, the three or four lead characters, these high school teachers, they're sort of in their mid 40 life. Life has sort of become kind of meh for all of them. They all feel jaded. They're not doing super well at really anything, but life is still sort of carrying on. And that feeling sort of, I think, was resonant for, I would say, a lot of us, definitely for me, for 2021, where you're working remotely, every day is the same. That feeling of deja vu, that, oh gosh, here's another day that needs to be started up, and how am I going to get through it? And that's what this movie is. But in the movie, sort of the literal panacea or antidote is one of the guys figuring out that the human blood alcohol level is like 0.5% lower than what it should be. So if we all consumed a little bit of alcohol in a day, which is basically a glass of wine in the middle of day, it'll actually get us to a place where we'll feel more ourselves, perform better at our life and our duties. And for a little bit, that actually pans out really well. Suddenly, the teachers are popular at school with their kids and their relationships. They're bonding together as friends, and there's sort of this pep and zip in their lives. And of course, like with all good things, if you go too far, things can actually turn around. And that's exactly what happens in the movie. So I think for me, this movie is a symbol of when you're going through tough times in your life or you're feeling jaded, taking stock of what is the stuff that you have in your life. And I think to me, this is why this is number one, because it's sort of a summarization of being grateful for the love I have in my life, my family, my friends, the fact that I have resources, that I can afford the lifestyle that I like, and even sort of, do this podcast with you, and expose myself to movies from all over the world. There's a lot to be grateful for. And I think that's sort of what this movie underlines. And then, not to mention, just beautifully directed, beautifully made. I found out much later, once the movie was in the Oscar conversation, that this movie, the idea of the movie was really the director creating something in partnership with his daughter, and representing this whole scene of like Danish drinking, which is sort of a thing. And much to all of our sadness, his daughter met with an accident right at the beginning of the shooting of the movie and died. And of course, he put the movie on pause for a little bit, but then there's something inside him that really made him feel that I had to come back and finish this movie as an homage to my daughter and such. And I think it was the most moving and riveting speeches from last year's Oscars as well. Spoiler alert, it won Best Foreign Language Film. But I think that once again, there's like a meta quality to it. What I was saying earlier, that even in the director's life, when you're hit with such grave tragedy, how do you move past it? And what are the things that can be antidotes for each of us, and what can we be grateful for? And yeah, that can sort of keep propelling us, because the name of the game is moving forward, right? We got to do that no matter what. So I think to me, this year has been about that, like figuring out what do I have in my life and how do I keep moving forward. So yeah, that's another round from 2020, which is my number one movie that shaped my 2021.
Well, this is also a film I've not seen. It was on my list around Oscar time, and I got busy and didn't get to it. And it's been on my queue on Prime Video for a while to rent. And I've heard fantastic things about it. And the way that you describe what this movie, like the themes of it, for sure, I can see why, this is your 2021. Interesting too, like, as you're talking about the drinking piece of it, like that was just making me think of 2020. Like in the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, great, I'm going to drink wine every day. And I was drinking a lot more in the first month, and then you can't sustain it at all. It's fun. And then it sort of is like, okay, like you have to wake up to a reality that like this is not sustainable, which I think too, like 2021 in a way represents that as well. Like 2020 was this year where a lot of things stopped, changed, whatever, but you can't sustain the lockdown. You can't sustain the state of what the world was in. And that something, you have to keep moving forward and moving on. And that is a big part of 2021 for sure. That moving forward, moving on, being grateful. And then that added layer of that tragedy that you mentioned. I had forgotten about that. Actually, that Oscar speech was great, that he gave about his daughter. And that too, you can read a lot into the pandemic into that as well. This was a great tragedy that we're still living in. I mean, hopefully it's the tail end of it. We don't know. Hopefully we won't be looking back in a year and being like, oh, 2020, wait till you get to 2022. No. Hopefully that's not the case. But it's like, how do you move on from this tragedy that the whole world experienced? Some people a lot more directly than others, but there's all something collectively as a world we experienced. And what do we do now? We have to keep moving. We need to do another round. We have to keep going. And how do we do that? So even for not even seeing this movie, I think it is a perfect film to be at the top of a list for about this year. Like all those themes are right there.
Glad to hear that. Yeah. And for anybody who's like looking for like a little, happy thing in their days, just go to YouTube and watch the dance performance from the end of this movie that Mads Mikkelsen does on the song What a Life, and it'll make your day. So yeah, but I highly recommend this one.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.